Our reporter Helen Hoddinott there. Now, I'm joined on the line by Scott Dixon, who's a consumer and motoring disputes expert. He's been listening as well to what Helen has mentioned with regards to Harrow. Scott, great to have you on BBC Radio London.
Good afternoon, Shay.
Thanks for joining me again. I mean, why are some places such hotspots for fines in your perspective?
It's clear to me that some of the signage must not be clear for so many people to be caught out. And motorists need to, the first line of attack on unfair parking fines, bus lane fines, any contravention is look for the signage. So if it's cluttered signs can, confuse people. And there are test cases online in the London area on this. You can look it up where. Now, the case that springs to mind is a psychologist, and she challenged cluttered signage along the same parallels as the cases that you've covered earlier, and she got it overturned. She was caught going into a bus lane. She had no chance to turn around, and the signage was unclear and obscured, and she proved it. And you need to be given time and sufficient guidance to make an informed decision. And she was able to prove that to a tribunal and got it overturned. And that scuppered a lot of retrospective fines that had been issued.
So with regards to what you're talking about, Scott, I mean, that sounds like a unique case. Some will say, yes, if you've got the money and time and know-how, then you can appeal. But I mean, on what other grounds can you appeal a fine?
Well, fines are the big one, but for parking fines, for example, if you're minutes out of time, you need to be given sufficient time to make an informed decision to read the terms and conditions of the signage before you enter into the contract. So how much do you need to pay? What's the time conditions, etc.? And that's a big one. You are allowed a grace period, and you can't tell me that every single fine that has been issued has been legitimate. Local authorities have played the percentage game for years, knowing that many motorists will simply pay up regardless of whether they consider it fair or unfair. And a lot of these tickets will have been issued for every single minor infringement, maybe a spelling mistake, minutes out of time, and it's clearly very lucrative. It's just a money-making racket.
Well, you call it a money-making racket, Scott, but what do councils use this money for?
Well, I think we would all like to know that answer, and I think a Freedom of Information request is required to find out what this money that's allegedly ring-fenced for is spent on.
Let me give you this. A representative for Local Government Association, which represents councils in England and Wales, said this, okay, Scott. It said that income raised through on-street parking charges and parking fines is spent on running parking services. Any surplus is spent on essential transport projects, including fixing the £11 billion road repairs backlog, reducing congestion, tackling poor air quality, and supporting local bus services. So that's the answer to the question in terms of what the Local Government Association says in terms of what councils are spending this money on.
Well, I think most people would beg to differ. Has anybody actually seen any improvements on the state of the roads and the services provided by the local authorities? I doubt it. And motorists are just seen as cash cows, Shay.
Do you truly believe that, Scott? Do you truly believe that that's the end game here? It's a cash cow for councils. You can't see the perspective of, the fact that they're trying to reduce congestion, ensure that there's enough space and time required for buses to go through cycle lanes. You can't see any of that side of things.
No, we do need enforcement, and we do. It can't be just a free for all because it would just be absolute chaos. But I think overzealous parking attendants and the local authorities, they do see it as a lucrative source of income to plug black holes in their budgets, and ultra-low emission zones, bus lanes, you name it. There's all sorts of different ways and means of hitting the motorists. And there will be a lot of unfair tickets issued. And, when you say 24,000 Camrose Avenue, 1.8 million, 34 a day, the figures just tell me that something's not quite right about the signage, and I mean, one of the listeners that you spoke to earlier, she said she literally had to stop at the last minute because she wasn't given sufficient guidance to make a clear and informed decision in time. And that in itself is dangerous. If she slams on the brakes and somebody runs in the back of her.
Let me ask you, just finally then, what do you say to anyone tuning into Radio London who is of the same thought process of you, which is, I need to appeal this, I feel that I shouldn't have to pay this fine? Should a person always appeal, even if they may actually think, hey, maybe I did make a mistake?
Well, mistakes happen. I mean, we're all human, and if you do think you've been caught unfairly, do appeal, because the odds are roughly 50-50 on winning an appeal. It goes to a tribunal, and use Google Street View, Google Maps to scope the area if you can't go back, and gather your evidence. You've got to be your own detective, and signs are the big one, but just take a broader perspective on it. And if you think that you've been issued with an unfair ticket, do appeal it, because it can be, look for test cases online as well for similar scenarios to frame your appeal, because there are people who have done it in the past and won their appeals at tribunals. So it's something worth considering.
Well, I think there'll be those who will definitely want to take you up on that. Let me give the website, thecomplaintsresolver.co.uk. You've got a number of books out as well that people can find out on how to complain. The Consumer Guide to Resolve Complaints and Motoring Disputes, and another, The Consumer Guide to Cancelling Parking Tickets and Winning Pothole Claims. So you've really focused in on the issues that people deal with. Thecomplaintsresolver.co.uk. Pleasure having you back on the show, Scott. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you. Scott Dixon there, Consumer and Motoring Disputes expert. Anaya,